So, welcome everyone. As I said, this is a really important topic that I love talking about purpose because I think it is the foundation for everything for business. So, this is part of our 20-minute teachings that we do. We do them every month, and then they're on a short, sharp topic just to give you a dose of inspiration for the month. And each of the 20-minute teachings forms part of something that I teach called the Unbridled Business Blueprint. And it helps us put everything together and a way to structure a high performance team. So I put a few together slides for us to start with. So let's just share those. So hopefully you guys can see that now. So we're going to talk today about from purpose to profits, how to turn your busy team into an aligned high performance machine. And I think here's the really uncomfortable truth for many of us that without a compelling purpose, I think your business is just sitting on sand, and we can throw all the perks and people and inflated salaries at people. But if your team doesn't believe in what they're doing, they're always going to stall. So there's a lot of talk around, and there has been for a number of years now, about creating purpose driven companies. And when I go and speak with businesses, a lot of them, they're not embracing and embodying it. You go into businesses and I see values or purpose written on the wall, but nobody really understands what it is. And if we ask people in the organization what your purpose is, they don't really know. So for me, purpose is the heartbeat of the business ecosystem. And it's what really pulls everything together. It fuels the energy, it sustains momentum, and it keeps the business going through all the turbulent times. And when we don't have purpose in our business, trust breaks down and silos form. And ultimately, your best people leave. So, this is why, for me, purpose matters more than profit. And what I want to look today is to how we can create a foundation for this unstoppable teamwork within the business. So I'd just like to ask you all here on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that your team know where the business is heading and their role getting there? And are you at the end of 1 to 2, which is wandering aimlessly, or are you at 9 to 10, which is galloping with purpose? Perhaps you could all just shout out and let me know. Where do you think your business is on that scale?
I would say my business is at a 7,
Good.
Julia, because
Awesome.
one of my colleagues, who is our IT side of the business,
Yep.
creating our learning platform, he's not familiar with the industry. So I know that he can't see the end game
Yep.
that I see in 3 to 5 years' time, just because he's not familiar with the industry. But my other colleague, Susie, who has worked in the industry and does now, she sees it more clearly because she knows the industry.
Okay. Interesting.
But
Okay.
the saving factor of that is everybody's really positive about their role in the business, and
Good.
we're still on directors in this business, but our supporting staff are all really into the purpose that we have. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Carolyn, what about you? Where do we think diamond skincare?
Yeah, probably similar, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, around about a 7, even hovering up to an 8. But I
Yeah.
think that everybody knows what our goal and our purpose is. But I think we're in the stage at the moment, because we're scaling up, that the roles are having to be redefined in order to help us to get into the
Sure.
higher end of those numbers at the moment. So,
Yeah.
but so everybody knows what we're heading for.
Excellent. What about Mark? I know that you're more working with companies, aren't you, rather than, or have you
Yeah,
changed the role again? You're always changing roles.
wandering aimlessly at the moment, but
All right.
no, I don't have a team that I'm working with
Yeah.
right now in between, but it obviously, as you said, it varies depending on which business I'm working with and
Yeah.
how that's going.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Fabulous. Okay. So thank you for sharing that, people. So I really love this quote. If you have a purpose and you can articulate it with clarity and passion, then everything makes sense and everything flows. Because I think we've all been parts of teams which can be the busiest people in the industry, but that is just busyness sometimes. They're just spinning wheels. They're not going anywhere. They're not scaling like you were talking about, Caroline. They look really busy, but we're just going round and round in circles.
For sure.
And, what we really want is that purpose to be the raison d'etre of why everyone's showing up in the business each and every day. It's providing that cohesion and that clarity. As we know, it's sometimes not the easiest thing to create the purpose for our business or even our own personal lives. But It's just so important to do because it gives our team members that kind of North Star where we're heading. And of course, why we're doing what we're doing. That's the thing. It's helping give the business some direction. So let's just talk a little bit then about what's the difference between mission and purpose. And I think this is the easiest way to describe it. Mission is about what you do, and purpose is about why it matters. So if we thought a bit like this, mission, when we're thinking about what we do, it's an explanation about what the organization does. And therefore, it's a kind of a one-way communication. And I'd love to contrast that with purpose, which is why we're doing things. So this is very much more relational, and it lives in that space between your people and the organization. And we know that when our team members understand and lean into the organizational purpose, they effectively become what I sometimes term as sleepwalking through the business. We've all had team members that show up every day, they do an okay job, but they don't really go the extra mile. But I find that when team members really understand the business's purpose and why we're doing it, they become much more engaged. They become much more proactive in getting things done. They start taking accountability and responsibility. So let's just have a look at a couple of examples then of the difference between purpose and mission, because I do think that these get confused quite a lot. So if we take somebody like IKEA, their purpose is to create a better everyday life for many people. So you see that purpose, it has nothing to do with what they physically do, selling furniture and things for the home. But when we look at their mission is to offer a wide range of well-designed, functional home furnishing products at prices so low that as many people as possible will be able to afford them. So what we seem to find is that the why is really aspirational. Disney's why is to create happiness. That's nothing about what the theme parks do or what the films do. So our why is all about sharing a dream. It's that really aspirational true north about where we want the business to go. And it creates that positive teamwork and instills ownership and fuels passion within the business. And we want to contrast that with the what, which is more like, what's the operating business? What are we doing? And the what tends to be more strategic. It's inspirational as opposed to aspirational. It creates buy-in from our team members and it provides them with focus. So one, we've got, I can't spell passion. One's fueling passion and one's providing focus. So when I actually look at my own business here and, what we spent a lot of time thinking about, what is the purpose of Business Horsepower and what is our mission? Our purpose is to empower trailblazing leaders to unlock their full potential and revolutionize business through connection, collaboration, and community. By embracing the wisdom of nature and the herd, we ignite a new paradigm where no resources are wasted, all potential is maximized, and reinvention is constant. And what does that result in? A happy, healthy, harmonious workplace. Because that's what we're all about here at Business Horsepower, is creating better places for people to work in and where everyone unlocks their full potential. And I want to contrast that with our mission, which is much more granular. It's to redefine leadership and team development by harnessing the wisdom of nature and horse herds to empower trailblazing leaders and their team to achieve peak performance through trust, energy, and curiosity. And in terms of our mission, we're bridging that gap between nature and business, offering unique, transforming learning experiences that elevate performance, inspire collaboration, and foster a sustainable future. So one is always a big picture. And the purpose, typically, when we look at a number of businesses, purpose is often can get quite similar for a number of businesses, because at the core of it, a business that is really purpose driven is actually out to make a difference in the world and make a real impact. So that's why it's really important that we think about purpose. And notice here, purpose says nothing about creating money. Of course, a business needs to make profit, but when it's purpose driven, in my experience, profit becomes the fallout of what we're doing. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the work of Simon Sinek. So Simon Sinek created, in his really famous TEDx talk that you can find on YouTube, he talks about these golden circles, the why, how, what circles. And the hypothesis that he put forward, as many of you probably remember, is that most businesses look at what they do and how they do it, and then they look at why they exist. And that's not very motivational for team members. You know, what companies do, we're Dell, what do? We make computers. And you want to contrast that with companies that really focus on why. So if we think about a company like Apple, who really focuses on its why, their why is to challenge the status quo and create innovative products that are personal and that people just love. So when they start with why, they then can go into how they do that and then what they do. And the advantage of when we really start focusing on why is that it provides us a much bigger playing field to work in. Because as we'll know, Apple are great at having many different products in their portfolio. Of course, they started with computers, iPhones, watches, AirBuds, or what they called iBuds. And then they've got these AirTags now and iPod earphones and stuff. They've got a huge range of products in their portfolio. And nobody's surprised when Apple comes out with something new, providing it's challenging the status quo and it's innovative. And you contrast that with somebody like Dell, who focused on what they do, which was making computers. And then, of course, the challenge was when they came out with something that wasn't a computer, they started coming out with TVs at some point. Nobody understood. They couldn't reconcile why they were all of a sudden in the TV business. It didn't make any sense to them. So this why gives us a broader playing field to work on, and also means we can get more talent. So therefore, if we look at this power of purpose to transform, we can see that when we've got no purpose in a business, the leaders are driven by ego and power. We can often end up with turf wars, internal competition, micromanagement, and little engagement. Whereas when we've got a clear purpose, we get that collective responsibility that we're all looking for, that our team are all pulling together and working in the same direction. We get the cohesive unity and alignment. We get positive teamwork. We get collaboration, and we get a highly motivated and engaged team. So when we don't have purpose, we end up with, I think, things like scattered projects and the siloed teams and endless firefighting, which none of us really want. But when we can really nail down the purpose, we're able to create a cohesive strategy. We get that unified execution and profits that just flow naturally. Because this is the truth. Every day your team isn't aligned behind a shared purpose, you're losing time, money, and momentum. And I think that's a really harsh reality for us to realize, isn't it? That in business, when we're in that busyness and we're going round and round spinning wheels, we're losing time, money, and momentum day in, day out. So I think it's important for us to recognize that our purpose beats paychecks every time. I don't think many of us have seen a check like this in a long time in today's environment, but a paycheck. And I think what's really interesting for us in today's world, where we have such a diverse workforce, we've got more generations in the workforce today than we've ever had. And Deloitte did some research that showed that 84% of millennials feel it's their duty to improve the world through their career and through their work. So therefore, for them, a paycheck doesn't cut it. And neither will things like a table tennis table or other benefits. They really want to be working for an organization that's contributing to something bigger. And they really want to stop seeing work as a job and see it much more as a vocation of something that they're doing that's going to make a really great impact in the world. And when we can get that aligned, then we see their productivity improves, their engagement soars, and of course the profits follow. So a question for you all to think about is, could everyone in your business explain your purpose in one sentence if you weren't in the room? Is everyone got that real clarity about why we're doing what we're doing? Why is your business in existence? Because if not, we've got a gap to close, right? To get everyone on the same page that they can all pull in the same direction. And I think the other thing with purpose is that, as I said, the millennials are all looking to work for organizations where they can make a big impact. And there's a lot of companies out there that are putting out that they've got some great purpose, but when the rubber hits the road, then we see everything falls apart. Because our purpose aligns with our values, and our values define everything that we do, all the priorities in the business. So a company that says that part of their purpose is to create a sustainable world, for example, and then all of the actions that they take do nothing to improve creating a greener environment, then there's a real disconnect between what's going on and what their behaviors and what they say is going to happen. And that's when we find a lot of millennials getting disillusioned with companies and leaving. So I wanted to introduce you to the purpose triad here, because I believe that when we've got purpose, then team members have this sense of belonging. They also have great belief in the company. And as a result, they behave their way into what we want the company to achieve. And I've really realized this in my herd of horses, because in the horse herd, the purpose is actually really simple. It's survival for their case, because in the wild, they could be eaten by mountain lions. So their purpose is safety and surviving. But it's having that clarity of knowing why they are doing what they're doing that gives them that sense of belonging, belief, and behavior. And this is why businesses aren't any different, because we want our team members to feel part of the business, to buy into our beliefs about what's going to happen in the business, and then support that with the right behaviors and stop engaging in things like office politics. We want them to behave themselves into good collaboration and help the silos dissolve within the organization. So purpose is a little bit like a magnet. It attracts the right team members. It attracts, when we get this right, the right millennials and other people that we want in the team. It attracts the right customers and also the right investors. But when we get this wrong, it repels those audiences just as powerfully. So you might want to think about, how do you put purpose into your recruitment process, and stop hiring for just skills alone and start screening for a purpose fit. So that's really important. That, as I said, millennials want to work for companies that are aligned with them. So really make sure that your purpose is clear and that you're attracting team members that want to be on the same journey as you. But this also comes into play for our customers as well, because we've seen that consumers are more likely to remember companies that have a strong sense of purpose. And brands with a strong sense of purpose are 6 times more likely to be protected in the face of negative publicity. Think about that, 6 times more likely to be protected when there's negative publicity, because we've got raving fans that love to work for us. So this is why purpose is so important. It is that magnet. And when we can attract great team members, we see that they want to be in the business. They actually pay more attention in the business. And I think last month's 20-minute teach was on the importance of attention. But when team members pay attention, then we see a decrease in safety incidents of at least 13%. But also we're going to see a decrease in turnover and increase in profitability. So how does this all relate to the purpose to profits framework that I promised I'd share today? It's because that North Star is your purpose. It defines every decision, strategy, and budget line in the business. It's a decision-making filter for every meeting, priority, and budget line. And as I said, it anchors the team in something bigger than individual agendas. And when we've got a great purpose, then we can start thinking about what our strategy is, because we can start aligning the work. And this alignment is the bridge, because then we can translate purpose into priorities, what matters most, the behaviors, how we show up, and simple rules, the guidelines that guide our daily choices. And then when we've got that, then we can go into measuring the momentum, because what we can measure, we can manage. And then we can spot where leaks are happening in the business quite quickly. So if we look at this, we have purpose that then enables us to have a great strategy that then enables the execution to happen. So this is why I'm so passionate about purpose, because it definitely sits at the top of this pyramid, and everything else in the business comes off of this. And we start creating a strategy without having a clear purpose, it doesn't work. Or we go into execution, we get things done in the short term, but there's no longevity to the business, and we don't know what's going to happen. What I think is really important for us to recognize is that purpose is actually a key part of our business model, I want to suggest, because purpose is your reinvention umbrella. Some of you may have heard me talk about the importance of reinvention in business right now. The world is moving at breakneck speed and everything is changing. The average lifespan for a company now is only about 6 years. For some companies, it's even shorter. It depends on the business sector you're in. But when you've got purpose at the top of the business, like Apple, this is what enables us to reinvent and bring in more products and services that make sense and therefore keep the business sustainable. Whereas if we are just thinking about what we do, in that case of Dell I was sharing earlier on, it's difficult for them to reinvent because they've not got a clear purpose that's being articulated to the marketplace. And therefore the marketplace doesn't understand when they bring in new products and services that don't align with that. So this is why I think about purpose as our reinvention umbrella that helps everything pull together. So I do believe that there's a return on investment that you can't ignore from purpose, and this comes from all the research. Companies with a strong purpose boost financial performance by 17%. They bounce back 6 times faster after setbacks. 78% of workers would choose a purpose-driven company over a competitor, and the millennials will even take a pay cut to work for one. So for me, purpose just isn't a philosophy, it's a performance strategy. So you might want to think about how you run a performance audit within your company to make sure that all your initiatives line up with your purpose. And that might mean you need to kill or reframe some of the other things going on in the business. Because purpose is a virtual circle. When we do well, we enable organizations to do great things, to have a better impact that contributes to the organization, then we can do well again. So when businesses do well, it feeds profit, and the profit fuels more impact, and the impact strengthens the purpose. And so we can get this continuous virtual cycle going round. But the problem is when we break the cycle, the momentum dies. So it's really important that we focus on this purpose so that we can drive the profits in the organization and create a highly performing team. So just want to share with you before I just jump back into the room. I'd really encourage you, if you want to know how to get this working in your business, I've got a short quiz called the Business Horsepower Turbocharge Your Team Quiz, which you find at businesshorsepower.com/quiz. Please feel free to go and take that. It's just 12 questions. And then if you'd like to have a complimentary call to discuss your results, please do. And also, I know many of you're following me on LinkedIn, but also don't forget to check out my podcast, Impactful Teamwork, which you can find on businesshorsepower.com/podcast or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So let me just ask anyone who's got any questions they want to ask, because I'm conscious I always run to the top of the hour. I don't leave enough time for questions, but I'm happy to take any if anyone's got any. It's always a fun thing.